The first step to a high-quality assessment in an SGG is to ensure that the type of assessment used is aligned to the purpose. In order to evaluate this step, we first must understand what types of assessments are there. The following provides a brief description of each type of assessment we could consider. First, let's look at summative assessments. Summative assessments can either be a state or district developed assessment, such as a district end of course exam, or state accountability exams, such as the MSP or HISP. The primary purpose of these types of exams are to measure outcomes at the school, district, or state level. They are used for school and district accountability, school improvement planning, evaluation, and research. State and district summative assessments can be used within the SGG process as one of the multiple sources of baseline data, but should not and cannot be used as an assessment in the target of an SGG because they are not instructionally sensitive. Other types of summative assessments are teacher or PLC final exams, which are actually developed by the PLC. The primary purpose of these types of assessments is to measure student learning at the end of a term, semester, or year at the classroom and or PLC level. They are designed to evaluate the extent of learning for the purpose of grading, course advancement, or evaluation of curriculum. These types of assessments can be used in an SGG because not only are they the assessments of learning, but since they are teacher and PLC developed, they are also instructionally sensitive. The next type of assessment we should examine is interim assessments. Interim assessments are assessments such as, in our district, the CMA and the EIRA, and their primary purpose is to screen, which means to identify students needing targeted interventions. They can also be used to benchmark student progress to summative assessments and learning objectives. The data typically remains internal to the school or the district. Assessments that are used primarily to screen are administered to the total population of students and generally assess key skills that are the indicators of students' larger skill set, rather than an in-depth analysis of the standards. They should be relatively quick to administer and easy to score. Assessments used for screening purposes can inform decisions about the placement of groups of students within an academic program, structure, or individual students' needs for academic intervention or special programs. When needed, screening assessments are followed by diagnostic assessments to determine if more targeted intervention is necessary or if a student has a disability, and generally assesses key skills that are indicators of students' larger skill set rather than an in-depth analysis. Since these assessments are not an in-depth analysis of the standards because they cover the entire year of learning, and since many times they assess curriculum that has yet to be taught that year, they generally lack requirements of instructional sensitivity and would not be recommended to be used within an SGG. Common assessments such as PLC assessments, unit tests, common formative assessments, primary purpose is to measure student learning at the end of an instructional unit. These common assessments are ones that are teacher and PLC developed. They are designed to evaluate the extent of student learning for the purpose of grading and or whatever reteaching is necessary for some or all students. These types of assessments are best to be used in an SGG target because not only are they an assessment of learning, they are instructionally sensitive since the assessments are teacher and PLC developed. Finally, let's look at formative assessments. It is a process, and formative assessments are a process. And this process is usually a set of strategies that teachers and our students use to gather information for the purpose of informing instructional decisions. It is not used to screen or identify students with lagging skills, nor to measure long-term outcomes. Rather, it is used to measure whether students learned what they were just taught before moving on to instructional next steps. Formative assessments are extremely sensitive to instruction, but are not used of learning, but rather they're used in the learning process. Because of that, they also should not be used within the SGG target setting. On a final note, the use of formative and our interim assessments during the SGG cycle is very important, and one would even say the most important types of assessment used, especially the formative assessment, and should always be used during the teaching and learning process. If they are administered thoughtfully and at the appropriate time intervals, formative and/or interim assessments will ensure that students are prepared for the assessment used to measure students' understanding of the learning goal. However, there is no value in assessing students if it does not impact the instruction. Therefore, a teacher must consider how the assessments are being used for monitoring progress and subsequently used to differentiate instruction for all students, both struggling students and those who are in need of being challenged on the material.